Have you ever experienced anger, resentment, or revenge towards someone who has done you wrong? Did you ever want to take revenge on them or make them suffer as much as they made you suffer? Did you spend time and effort to think out a plan of revenge or fantasize about how you would humiliate them or hurt them? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, then you are not alone. Each of us has enemies in life or people who we perceive as enemies. These can be our rivals, competitors, critics, haters, or even friends or family members who betrayed or offended us. But what if there is a better way to deal with enemies? A way in which there is no struggle, violence, or aggression, but there is wisdom, kindness, and self-control. A way that not only helps you to overcome your enemies, but also turns you into a better person. A person who is free from negative emotions and lives in harmony with himself, with other people, and with nature. This is the path of Stoicism. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing that is really under our control are our own judgments, opinions, and actions, and everything else is an external, indifferent, and subject to change. Therefore, we should focus on what we can control without allowing it to disrupt our mental peace. Thus, Stoicism is not a passive or indifferent position, but rather an active and rational one, which allows us to live in accordance with our nature and mind and gives us the opportunity to meet any challenge, obstacle, or disagreement with courage, wisdom, and dignity. How can Stoicism help us defeat our enemies without a fight? Here are 7 ways based on the teachings of Stoic philosophers. 1. Realize that your enemy is not an enemy, but a teacher. In an attempt to understand how to defeat your enemies without resorting to physical conflict, the first principle is to recognize that your enemy is a powerful teacher in the class of life. Instead of perceiving him as an evil force, consider your enemy as a catalyst for growth, challenging your abilities, revealing your weaknesses and your vices. Your enemy becomes a mirror reflecting the areas in which you need to improve. According to Marcus Aurelius, the outstanding Roman emperor and philosopher Stoic, the best way to take revenge is not to become like an offender. This profound statement emphasizes the importance of overcoming hostility and raising good people in response to adversity. Obstacles to action contribute to action. What stands in the way becomes a road, Avril said eloquently. This point of view encourages you to turn obstacles into opportunities, using difficulties as steps on the way to personal and moral development. Instead of giving into anger or resentment, accept the difficulties that your enemy creates as a means to develop resilience, perseverance, and wisdom. In addition, Mark Aurelius calls for self-analysis, advising, every time you are going to find a flaw in someone, ask yourself a question. What is my biggest flaw that I am going to criticize? Such an introspective approach makes you recognize your shortcomings before you make judgments about others. It raises humility and sympathy. Therefore, instead of feeding hatred or avenging the enemy, think about expressing gratitude for the valuable lessons that he teaches. Show kindness, wish them well, and learn the possibility of reconciliation. Switch your attention from the perception of the enemy as a threat to the acceptance of it as a unique gift, a blessing that pushes you to self-knowledge and personal development. By adopting this way of thinking, you will not only neutralize the negative influence of your enemy, but also rise to a higher level of understanding and compassion. In fact, the path to the destruction of the enemy without resorting to physical conflict is laid out with the help of wisdom received from the attitude to adversity as a teacher on your path to becoming a better person. 2. Understand that your enemy is not the cause of your suffering, but your judgment. In the desire to destroy the strength of your enemy without resorting to physical resistance, the second most important point is to understand that your enemy is not the cause of your suffering. In fact, it is your own judgments that have this power. Your enemy does not cause you direct anger, sadness, or fear. Rather, it is your interpretation of his actions, your thinking processes, and your reactions form your emotional reactions. Your enemy works as a mirror reflecting the inner landscape of your mind and emotions. It illuminates those areas where your judgments are distorted, where irrationality and emotional reactivity control your thoughts. In this context, your opponent serves as a catalyst, revealing patterns of unrealistic expectations and emphasizing deeply rooted attachments and disgusts that you experience for external circumstances. The Epictetus philosopher, who himself came out of slavery and became a revered teacher, formulated this idea in his Enchiridion. People are not concerned by events, but by their judgments about them. This fundamental thought refutes the idea that external events have the innate ability to disrupt the human mental peace. On the contrary, the emotional reaction is determined by the prism through which these events are interpreted. People are not concerned by things, but by the views they take on them. Epictetus emphasized that this declaration emphasizes the emphasis of Stoic philosophy on the inner sphere, calling people to recognize that their perception and interpretation play a key role in determining their emotional state. Realizing that your enemy is not the only trigger for your emotions, but rather a catalyst for your own judgments, you get the opportunity to change your reactions and develop emotional stability. Moreover, Epictetus urges people to remember that insults and humiliation do not hurt them in their essence. On the contrary, it is the interpretation and emotional reaction. Instead of pointing out the fault, complaint, or offense to your enemy, go on a journey of self-analysis. Abandon the challenge to your assumptions, carefully analyze your judgments and try to change your point of view. Instead of perceiving your enemy as a source of pain, suffering or fear, recognize him as a catalyst for deep self-awareness, wisdom, joy and courage. In this paradigm, your enemy becomes a slave guide, leading you along the path of inner freedom and detachment from circumstances that are out of your control. By admitting that your judgments are the key to your emotional state, you will give yourself the opportunity to free yourself from the shackles of suffering and to accept a deep liberation that comes with a change in perspective. 3. Understand them. The main strategy of neutralizing the enemy without resorting to physical conflict is to delve into the sphere of understanding. To do this, you need to understand the reasons why they became your opponent, to discern their desires and to solve the intricate weave of their thinking processes. The main thing is to perceive them as they really are, and not through the prism of imagination or preconceived ideas. By deeply understanding your enemy, you get the opportunity to reasonably approach potential conflicts. This understanding will allow you to warn them of their actions, use their vulnerable places and avoid unnecessary clashes. Moreover, penetration into their mentality allows you to reveal their humanity, see their imperfections, vulnerable places and internal struggle. This understanding destroys the simplified idea that they are originally evil, turning them into people who can be more delusional than malicious, more imperfect than monstrous, and fundamentally similar to you, but not different. It opens the triggers of your anger, threats to your ego and challenges to your values. By carefully studying your reactions and motives, you go on a journey of self-knowledge. This introspective process gives you the opportunity to learn from your mistakes, to improve your character and develop wisdom within yourself. Seneca, the revered historical philosopher, laconically formulated this transforming approach as the best way to defeat the enemy and make him your friend. This aphorism goes beyond the general understanding of victory over the enemy by force, calling people to explore the transforming power of turning the enemy into an ally.